Human tactics have always been infamous for their sheer scale and intensity, often bordering on what others might call excessive. Standing before the assembly, Admiral Talon gestured toward the towering projection screen. "The Battle of Yavin 5, he announced, his voice echoing across the hall. Humans refer to it simply as light bombardment. Behind him, the image of 5 massive battle cruisers illuminated the screen. These colossal ships orbited high above a desolate planet, unleashing a relentless barrage of orbital artillery upon a terrorist fortress known as the Keep. Over 2 megatons of ordnance rained down on a 50-square-mile area. When questioned about the proportionality of their actions, Talon continued, human diplomats seemed genuinely confused. Their response? That's just standard orbital fire support. A second image replaced the first, a screenshot from a human news outlet. The Yavin 5 bombardment was buried deep in an article about peacekeeping efforts, barely registering as a noteworthy event. For context, the Admiral explained, those of you born after this period might not recall the Keepers of the Sacred Word. This terrorist faction was considered the galaxy's most dangerous organization in over half a century. But to humanity, they were little more than a nuisance, an insect to be swatted. The next image was one of history's most iconic and controversial, a lone human soldier standing amidst the smoldering ruins of New Calante. The soldier leaned casually against a tree, her rifle slung over her shoulder, while a fleet of frigates rained autocannon fire on anything that moved within the ruins. This photograph, Talon said, gesturing toward the image, has been analyzed endlessly by historians. The soldier in question was part of the first wave of drop troopers to land in the New Calante region. According to both human and independent records, she personally eliminated 57 combatants before being extracted. Shortly after her evacuation, nuclear warheads were deployed, reducing New Calante and everything within a 200-mile radius to molten glass. Talon paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle over the room. The next slide appeared. A human lawyer standing in court, flanked by Galactic Council officials. When the Council attempted to charge humanity with war crimes over the destruction of New Calante, Talon said, their defense was as simple as it was devastating. The lawyer presented 2 arguments. First, the Galactic Council had explicitly requested humanity's assistance in dealing with the Keepers. Second, the Keepers had released multiple bioweapons from their laboratories, threatening not just the city, but the entire planet. Faced with these facts, the court had no choice but to dismiss the charges. Humanity, the lawyer had argued, faced a choice: sacrifice one city or risk losing an entire world. We chose the lesser evil. The room was silent as Talon continued. And let me remind you, humanity's actions at New Calante were a compromise. Their initial proposal involved glassing the entire continent and quarantining every system within a 15-light-year radius. A nervous murmur rippled through the audience. One young officer hesitantly raised her hand. "Admiral," she began, her voice shaking, "if a 15-light-year quarantine wasn't considered overkill, then what was?" Talon allowed himself a small smile. "An excellent question," he replied. The next slide displayed classified data. "What you see here," he said, "is humanity's alternative proposal, a 100-light-year quarantine. To them, this was not excessive. It was a reasonable precaution." This revelation stunned the audience into silence. Talon continued. "This event marked the beginning of our intensified surveillance of humanity. Over the following decades, what we uncovered was both awe-inspiring and terrifying." The slides began to shift rapidly. Images of human diplomats, enormous starships, and engineering marvels appeared in quick succession. "Humanity," Talon said gravely, "is not merely a galactic power. They are an intergalactic civilization. They control at least 27 galaxies and have a presence in over 1,700 others. Some estimates suggest their influence extends to over 10,000 galaxies." The room grew colder as Talon advanced to the next slide. the Great Rift of Althor. "This," he said, his voice heavy, "is one of the most catastrophic events in recent memory. 10 years ago, the Great Rift opened, swallowing an entire star cluster. The combined efforts of 157 species, including humanity, were required to contain the radiation, which threatened 15,000 stars." The next image caused audible gasps. It depicted a human-built hypergate, harnessing the energy of a quasar and focusing it into a weapon of unimaginable power. "This," Talon said, gesturing to the projection, "is what humanity considers overkill. This hyperweapon was deployed against the Althor plague, a disease so virulent that it could wipe out entire planets within days." A horrific image filled the screen, a disfigured being writhing in agony. "The plague," Talon explained, "was unlike anything we had ever encountered. In the final 10 days before the rift opened, 273 planets went completely dark. Humanity's response was swift and decisive. The slides shifted to detailed schematics of the plague's effects. "Even the humans," Talon said, "were unsettled by this scourge. It is the only threat I have ever known to truly unnerve a human admiral." Talon surveyed the room. "And now," he concluded, "you might wonder, what can we do with this knowledge? The answer is simple: nothing. Humanity's power dwarfs ours in every conceivable way. But they have consistently acted as allies, rational, cooperative, and dedicated to peace. My advice is this: never antagonize them. Work with them, not against them. Remember," Talon said with a grim smile, "to humanity, apocalypse is standard procedure. Overkill is annihilation on a universal scale. In short, don't bring a cruiser to a quasar fight."